They say humiliation is a wound that cuts deeper than any physical scar, and betrayal is the salt poured over it. I didn't expect to experience both at the hands of someone I trusted, someone I loved. He smiled at me, whispered sweet nothings into my ear, made me feel like I was enough. Until he didn't. It started with a single post. A few cutting words that shredded through my self-esteem, my dignity. The whole world saw it, laughed at it, and I disappeared. Vanished without a trace. While he basked in the attention, I sank into the shadows. But I wasn't gone. I was rebuilding. Slowly. Painfully. And when I finally emerged, I wasn't the girl he left behind. I was unrecognizable. Stronger. More beautiful than ever. And then he called. 30 missed calls. A voicemail with his voice trembling, his breath hitched with tears. I stood there, phone in hand, listening to his desperate pleas. He wanted me back. But by then I was already untouchable. This is the story of how I rose from the ashes of his betrayal, and made sure he would never forget it. I met Ryan during my second year of college. He was the golden boy, tall, lean, that charming smile that could melt you in an instant. He was everyone's dream. And somehow he had chosen me. I wasn't anything special. Brown hair, average face. I was a little on the quiet side, never the life of the party. But Ryan, he made me feel seen. He would reach for my hand when we walked down the street, introduce me proudly to his friends, pull me onto his lap at parties even when the other girls were watching with barely concealed jealousy. "You're the most beautiful girl I've ever been with," he'd tell me, brushing a hand over my cheek. I believed him. I believed every word. Maybe that's why it hit so hard when it all came crashing down. It was a Saturday night. I had been waiting for Ryan to come over. We had plans to order takeout and binge a Netflix series. He was late. I texted. No response. Then I got the notification. A tag on Instagram. I clicked on it and my heart stopped. It was a picture of me. An old one taken at a pool party last summer. My hair was damp, sticking to my forehead, my makeup washed off. I didn't look my best, but Ryan had always said I was beautiful no matter what. Caption read, "How did I even settle for this? Ugly AF. Probably the worst girl I've ever dated." My throat closed. My hands started shaking. The comments were worse. "Damn bro, you downgraded. She looks like someone's little sister. Did she even try to look cute?" The likes were climbing by the second. 3,000, 4,000. His friends were commenting too, laughing, adding more fuel to the fire. Ryan was laughing in the comments. I felt sick. Tears blurred my vision as I dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. I sent a text. "Why would you do this?" 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. No response. By the time the next morning rolled around, the post had gone viral. Some offered pity. Others mocked me. Friends I thought I could trust stopped replying to my messages. Ryan never apologized. He never explained. In fact, I saw him 2 days later, arms slung around another girl's waist. A prettier girl. She was smiling, wearing the same bracelet I had given him for his birthday. And that's when it hit me. He had never really loved me. He had loved the attention of having someone adore him. And when I stopped being shiny and new, he threw me to the wolves. For a week, I barely left my apartment. I stopped eating. I stopped showering. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts from my friends, snarky messages from people I barely knew. Can you believe what Ryan posted? "You should probably take some time away from social media." Maybe he was just joking? Joking. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to curl up and fade into nothingness. But something burned in my chest, beneath the humiliation, beneath the shame. Bigger. I was tired of being a joke. Tired of feeling like I wasn't enough. Tired of being reduced to a punchline. That's when I made the decision. I packed up everything I owned and left town. My aunt lived 2 states over. She owned a small PR agency and had been begging me for years to come and work with her. I had always hesitated, worried that I wouldn't be good enough. But now, I had nothing to lose. I started from the ground up. At first it was just admin work, filing contracts, sending out press releases. But then I got pulled into creative meetings. My ideas were good, better than I realized. I had a knack for knowing exactly what would grab people's attention. I suggested a social media campaign for a rising influencer. It blew up. The next month, a beauty brand hired us for a launch. I ran the campaign myself, and it went viral. Soon my name was being mentioned in industry circles. My following on social media started growing. I leaned into it, showing up to events dressing the part. Hair styled perfectly, makeup flawless. Confidence became my armor. By the time I was 24, I was managing celebrity profiles and negotiating multimillion-dollar deals. And Ryan? I didn't think about him. Until the day my phone started buzzing. 30 missed calls. His name flashed on the screen, Ryan. I let it go to voicemail. Then another. And another. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I played one of them. Hey, it's me. Ryan. His voice cracked. He sounded breathless. Look, I know I messed up. I know I was an idiot. But I saw you on TV. Look, amazing. Please call me back, okay? Delete. The next voicemail came seconds later. Please, I need to talk to you. I'm sorry for everything. But I miss you. I can't stop thinking about you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and God, please don't ignore me. Delete. Then the text started. Please call me. I'm sorry. I miss you. 2 days later, I walked into a high-profile industry gala. The kind where cameras flashed the moment you stepped out of the car. I wore a sleek black dress that hugged every curve. My hair was pinned back, makeup perfect. And there he was. Ryan stood near the entrance. He looked rough, dark circles under his eyes, stubble shadowing his jaw. He saw me and his eyes widened. I smiled, brushing past him. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Hey, he breathed. Please, can we talk? I met his gaze, cold and unreadable. Slowly I pulled my wrist from his grip. I don't think so, I said softly. His eyes were glassy, desperate. Please. Just give me a chance to explain. I leaned in, my lips brushing his ear. I don't care. And I walked away, leaving him standing there hollow and empty. I didn't look back. He had reduced me to a joke once, but now I was untouchable. He could keep calling, keep crying, but it wouldn't matter. He had thrown me away like trash, and I had built myself into a diamond. It's funny how quickly things can change. After that night at the restaurant, I assumed Ryan would get the message. He had embarrassed himself enough. He had practically begged me to give him a chance, and I had made it clear I wasn't interested. That should have been the end of it. And for a while it was. I threw myself into work. My career was skyrocketing. The skincare brand launch was a massive success, and I started getting offers from global brands. Suddenly, everyone wanted to work with me. I was being invited to red carpet events, galas, and celebrity parties. It was a new life. A better life. I barely thought about Ryan until the night of the gala. It was a high-profile charity event at a 5-star hotel downtown. The kind of event where champagne flowed endlessly and the air buzzed with the quiet hum of money and influence. I was wearing a sleek black gown with a high slit and diamond earrings that sparkled under the soft lighting. I had just stepped away from the main floor to take a call when I heard his voice behind me. Hey. I froze. Slowly I turned and there he was. Ryan stood near the entrance of the balcony, dressed in a tailored suit. He looked good, annoyingly good, but his face was pale and there were dark circles under his eyes. I didn't expect to see you here, I said coolly. He smiled faintly. I'm friends with the event sponsor. I raised an eyebrow. Lucky me. He took a step closer. Can we talk? I exhaled sharply. We already did. Just give me 5 minutes, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. Fine, I said. 5 minutes. Ryan's eyes softened, like he was relieved I hadn't immediately shut him down. He stepped closer, his hand brushing the edge of the railing. I'm sorry, he said softly. For what? I asked, even though I knew exactly what he was about to say. For everything, Ryan said. For the post. For embarrassing you. For hurting you. I stared at him, expression unreadable. I was a mess back then, he said. I didn't realize how much I was screwing up. And then I lost you and... I smiled faintly. And then I became successful. Ryan's jaw tightened. That's what this is about, I said. It's not that you miss me, it's that you miss the idea of me. Ryan shook his head. No. I miss you. I loved you and I held up a hand. Don't. His mouth snapped shut. You loved me. I said, my voice cutting. When you posted that picture and let your friends mock me. When you ignored me while strangers called me ugly online. That's what love looks like. Ryan's face paled. I don't know why I did that. You do, I said coldly. You were insecure. And it made you feel better to make me feel small. Ryan's mouth opened but no words came out. I stepped closer, my voice sharp. You humiliated me because it made you feel powerful. And now you're standing here trying to crawl back because you see that I don't need you anymore. I'm not like that anymore, Ryan whispered. I smiled faintly. Good. But that doesn't mean I forgive you. Ryan's face twisted with regret. Can't we at least try? No, I said softly. You don't get to try. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice so that only he could hear. You got one chance with me, Ryan, I whispered. And you ruined it. Ryan's eyes filled with something dark and desperate. He opened his mouth, but I had already turned and walked away. After that night I didn't see Ryan again, not in person anyway. But that didn't mean I didn't feel him watching me. 2 days after the gala he liked one of my Instagram posts. Then another. He started following me again. His name started appearing in my DMs. Polite at first. Casual. Then more desperate. I ignored them all. Then came the text. Hey. Just thinking about you. Can we talk? Please. Just give me a chance to explain. I didn't respond. Ryan didn't get to come back into my life just because he regretted losing me. He had made his choice. Now he had to live with it. And yet, it wasn't enough. I had rebuilt my life. I was happy, successful, independent. But some part of me still wanted him to understand exactly how much he had lost. It happened by accident, or maybe it was fate. I was being interviewed by a high-profile magazine, the kind that celebrities begged to be featured in. The interviewer was charming, professional, and sharp. So, she said, leaning forward, you've had an incredible rise in the industry. What's been the biggest motivator for you? I smiled. Success. And was there a moment that made you decide to go after this career? My smile sharpened. Yes. Actually, there was. The interviewer's eyes lit up. Tell me about it. Well, I said casually. My ex-boyfriend publicly humiliated me on social media. Called me ugly. Told the world I was the worst girl he'd ever been with. The interviewer's mouth parted slightly. So I left, I said. And I made myself into someone he could never touch again. Do you think he regrets it now? I smiled. Oh, I know he does. The interview went viral within hours. People were already guessing who the ex was. And it didn't take long for the internet to put the pieces together. Ryan's Instagram was flooded with comments. Yikes, bro. Bet you feel stupid now. Imagine throwing her away and watching her become a star. Ryan deactivated his account the next day. It was perfect. I didn't have to humiliate him the way he humiliated me. The world was doing that for me. And all I had to do was smile. The thing about revenge is that it's not about destruction. It's about power. Ryan had taken my dignity once and I had taken it back. He had made me feel small, and I had made myself untouchable. He could regret it all he wanted. He could sit in his apartment miserable and broken, wondering how he had let me slip away. But it was too late. Because now I wasn't just the girl he humiliated. I was the woman he could never have again. Closure is overrated. For the longest time I thought I needed it. An explanation, an apology, some grand gesture that would undo the damage Ryan had caused. I was wrong. Forgiveness wasn't something Ryan had earned. He had humiliated me, made me feel small, and then walked away as if I were nothing. No explanation would ever erase that. No apology would be enough. But revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about becoming untouchable. Becoming the version of yourself they can never reach again. And that's exactly what I had done. After Ryan's pathetic attempt to win me back at the gala, I didn't see or hear from him again. No more texts, no more voicemails, no more likes on my Instagram. Good. I had nothing left to say to him. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. The chapter was closed. Instead of focusing on Ryan, I focused on my career. The success from the skincare brand launch had opened doors I hadn't even realized existed. Offers were pouring in. Partnerships with luxury brands, influencer deals, invitations to exclusive events. Suddenly, I was the face of the next big thing. I barely had time to sleep and I loved it. My calendar was full of meetings, shoots, and events. My social media following was growing by the day. I was turning down more offers than I was accepting, and the ones I took were worth 6 figures. And the attention wasn't just professional. Men were paying attention to me now. Wealthy, powerful men. Men who knew how to dress, who understood how to treat a woman. And the best part? I wasn't interested. I wasn't bitter. I was just satisfied. Content. My success was mine and I didn't need anyone to validate it. Least of all Ryan. About a month after the gala, I got a call from one of the biggest fashion houses in the world. They wanted me to come on board as the creative lead for their next campaign. An unprecedented move for someone my age and experience level. It was the kind of opportunity that could make or break someone's career, and I was more than ready for it. The launch party for the campaign was held in Paris. An intimate event, only about 200 people, but the guest list was stacked with industry giants and celebrities. I wore a sleek black dress, fitted, strapless and just dramatic enough to draw attention without trying too hard. My makeup was perfect, dark eyeliner, red lips, a diamond choker resting at my collarbone. The event was held at a private chateau overlooking the city. Soft classical music played in the background, and waiters in crisp white shirts floated through the room with champagne flutes. I stood near the edge of the room sipping a glass of red wine, when the creative director approached me. "You've done incredible work," he said. "The campaign is one of the most innovative we've ever seen." "Thank you," I said smiling. "Honestly, you're the talk of the industry right now," he said. "Everyone's wondering how someone so young could have pulled off something like this." I smiled faintly. "By knowing my worth." He smiled back. "Well, you've certainly proved it." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of cameras flashing. A well-known celebrity had just arrived. A supermodel with legs that seemed to go on forever. I watched as the crowd shifted toward her, phones flashing as she smiled for the press. And then I felt someone approach me from the side. "Congratulations," a deep voice said. I turned and saw Grayson Black standing beside me. Grayson Black was one of the most eligible bachelors in the industry. CEO of a global media company, devastatingly handsome and notoriously private. He was tall, over 6 feet with sharp cheekbones and dark green eyes. He wore a tailored black suit that clung to his broad frame, and the silver watch on his wrist probably cost more than my apartment. "Thank you," I said smoothly. "I've been following your work," Grayson said, his gaze steady. "You're very impressive." I smiled. "I've been trying." "You make it look easy," he said, his lips curling slightly at the corner. My pulse quickened. Grayson Black was a known heartbreaker, the kind of man women fell for and never recovered from. He had been linked to models, actresses, heiresses, but right now his attention was focused entirely on me. "You're dangerous," I said lightly. Grayson's smile deepened. "I've heard that before." My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. "So what's next?" Grayson asked. "I haven't decided yet," I said. "You should come work for me," he said, his tone casual, but his eyes sharp. I raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "Very." I smiled faintly. "I'll think about it." Grayson's gaze slid down to my lips and for a moment, the air between us felt charged. "Good," he said. "Don't make me wait too long." He leaned in slightly, close enough for his breath to brush against my ear. "Enjoy the rest of your night," he murmured. Then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd. My pulse was still racing. Ryan had made me feel small. Grayson made me feel untouchable. 3 weeks later, I accepted Grayson Black's offer. I boarded a private jet to Milan to start working on a new campaign for his company, a high-fashion editorial that would be splashed across global billboards and runways. Grayson picked me up from the airport himself. "You ready for this?" he asked, his gaze steady. I smiled. "Always." Grayson's hand brushed against mine, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something real. Excitement, possibility, freedom. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about Ryan. This was about me. And I was just getting started. Closure isn't about hearing an apology. It's not about some grand romantic gesture, or the person who hurt you realizing the error of their ways. Closure is about standing in front of them, stronger, colder, and realizing you don't need them anymore. Ryan had humiliated me. He had torn me down and made me question my worth. But I had rebuilt myself from the ground up. I had found success, strength, and a sense of power that he could never take from me. No. I was no longer looking back. The past was behind me. The future was mine. And this time no one was going to take it from me. Accepting Grayson's offer was the easiest decision I had ever made. The company jet flew me to Milan, where I was immediately swept into a whirlwind of creative meetings, styling sessions, and location scouting. The campaign was massive, a multi-million-dollar project that would launch a new high-fashion line globally. I wasn't just involved, I was in charge. The creative team answered to me. The photographers, the stylists, the models, they all followed my direction. It was overwhelming at first, but I thrived under the pressure. Grayson was never far from the action. "You work well under pressure," he said one night after a particularly intense shoot. I smiled faintly. "I learned from the best." Grayson's gaze sharpened. "Ryan." My smile didn't falter. "Among others." Grayson stepped closer, his eyes dark. "He's an idiot." "I know." "You could have anyone," Grayson said. I raised an eyebrow. "Could I?" Grayson's mouth curled into a slow smile. "Yes." And then he walked away, leaving me breathless. The campaign launch was scheduled for late summer. The final shoot took place in an old cathedral just outside of Milan, the kind of place that oozed history and elegance. The models were draped in silk and velvet, the lighting low and dramatic. I stood just behind the photographers, adjusting the details. The angle of a hand, the positioning of a hemline. "You have an incredible eye," Grayson said from behind me. I turned slightly, catching the glint of approval in his gaze. "I know what works," I said. "You always have," he replied. My pulse quickened. Grayson was a dangerous kind of man, calm and confident with a gaze that cut straight through you. He didn't need to try to impress anyone, and that made him all the more intimidating. After the shoot, Grayson suggested we have dinner at his penthouse. I agreed without hesitation. Grayson's penthouse overlooked the entire city of Milan. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, and the interior was sleek and minimalist. Dark wood, black marble, and silver accents. Grayson handed me a glass of red wine and gestured toward the balcony. The air was cool but not cold. The lights of the city stretched beneath us, flickering like scattered diamonds. "You're different," Grayson said after a long moment. I raised an eyebrow. "Than most people." His gaze was steady. "You don't need anyone's approval." I smiled faintly. "I stopped needing it a long time ago." Grayson's eyes darkened. "Why?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took a sip of my wine and studied the skyline. "I used to be weak," I said. "I used to think that love was about acceptance. That if someone loved you, you were enough." Grayson's gaze sharpened. "And now?" "Now I know that love isn't about being enough," I said. "It's about power. It's about standing on your own and knowing that you don't need anyone else to validate you." Grayson's lips curled. "Interesting." My eyes met his. "Is it?" "Yes," he said softly. "Because I don't think you realize how powerful you've become." I smiled faintly. "Oh, I know." Grayson stepped closer, his gaze dropping to my mouth. "You don't let people in easily," he said. "No," I agreed. "Would you let me?" The air between us was charged, tense and electric. Grayson's eyes were dark and sharp, his mouth inches from mine. "I'm not interested in being saved," I whispered. Grayson's smile was dark. "Good. Because I don't save people." His mouth brushed against mine, soft and controlled, and I let him kiss me. It wasn't sweet or gentle. It was deliberate, a clash of dominance and control. And for the first time in a long time I felt like I had finally met my match. I woke up tangled in the silk sheets of Grayson's bed. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. Grayson was already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed watching me with sharp green eyes. "You stayed," he said. I smiled faintly. "For now." Grayson's mouth curled. "That's enough." I sat up, brushing my hair over one shoulder. "Are you always this confident?" "Yes," he replied without hesitation. I laughed. "Good." Grayson's gaze darkened. "Careful, or I might start thinking you like me." I leaned toward him, my mouth brushing against his ear. "Maybe I do." Grayson's hand slid over my thigh. "Then don't leave." I smiled. "I'm not going anywhere." The campaign launch was a success. Grayson's company released the first images in a global rollout. Magazine spreads, billboards, and television spots. My name was everywhere. Industry insiders were calling it the most innovative campaign of the year. My phone was constantly buzzing with new offers, but I didn't care about any of that. As I had already won. I had made a name for myself. I had proven, to Ryan, to the world, that I was more than the girl he had embarrassed. I wasn't the joke anymore. I was the crown. The prize. And Ryan was nothing more than a footnote in my story. A week after the campaign launch, I was sitting at a rooftop bar in Milan with Grayson when my phone buzzed. It was a DM request. From Ryan. I didn't open it, I didn't need to. What is it? Grayson asked, noticing my expression. Nothing, I said. Just the past trying to catch up with me. Grayson's eyes sharpened. Ryan. Yeah. What did he say? I smiled. It doesn't matter. Grayson studied me for a long moment. Does he matter? No, I said simply. Grayson's gaze softened. He reached across the table and took my hand. Good, he said. And just like that, I knew it was over. Sometimes closure isn't about words. It's not about hearing, I'm sorry, or having the person who broke you suddenly realize their mistake. Real closure is standing on the other side of the pain, whole, successful, untouchable, and realizing you no longer need their apology. Ryan had humiliated me, reduced me to nothing. But I had rebuilt myself from the ashes of his betrayal. And now he was nothing more than a shadow from my past. A lingering regret that would haunt him, but no longer haunt me. As I had already moved on. Ryan, he would never catch up. After the campaign launch, my life settled into something almost dreamlike. The fashion industry had officially embraced me as a creative powerhouse. My agency was thriving. I was handling million-dollar contracts and global brand partnerships with ease. My name was everywhere. On magazine covers, in business journals, in interviews with high-profile publications. I had made it. Grayson and I were still together, though we kept things quiet. He was powerful in his own right, but with me he was relaxed. We had an understanding. No expectations, no pressure. Just comfort and ease. I was no longer defined by anyone else. Not by Ryan, not by Grayson, not by the industry. I was defined by myself. And that was enough. It was a late spring evening in Paris when it happened. I was attending a private exhibition for one of the luxury brands my agency had worked with. It was an elegant event. Marble floors, high ceilings, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. I was wearing a fitted silk gown in deep emerald green. My hair was swept back in a low bun, diamond earrings sparkling against my skin. People whispered as I walked through the room. The press was there, but they weren't the focus. The focus was on the campaign, and by extension on me. I stood near one of the windows, holding a glass of champagne. Grayson had gone to speak with one of the brand executives, leaving me alone for a moment. That's when I felt it. A shift in the air. A subtle awareness that I was being watched. Slowly I turned toward the window, toward the street below. And that's when I saw him. Ryan. He was standing on the sidewalk across the street, just outside the glow of the streetlights. His hands were tucked into the pockets of his jacket, his hair slightly tousled. He wasn't dressed for an event. Dark jeans, a fitted black jacket, but his posture was relaxed. He didn't look out of place. He looked like he didn't belong at all. His gaze was steady, focused entirely on me. Even through the glass, I could see the tension in his expression. A quiet kind of longing mixed with resignation. He knew. He knew he didn't belong in my world anymore. And yet he was still there. I watched as Ryan's mouth curled into a small, sad smile. Not bitter. Not hopeful. Just acceptance. And despite everything, the pain, the betrayal, I smiled back. It wasn't a sharp smile, not the cold, cutting smile I had once used to wound him. It was soft. Honest. Because I had won, not in the way I had imagined, but in the quiet realization that I was no longer angry. No longer hurt. Ryan had already lost me. And he knew it. I saw the way his eyes softened when I smiled, the way his shoulders relaxed, like he had been holding on to something heavy for too long. He didn't move toward the door. He didn't try to come inside. He didn't need to. After a moment, Ryan nodded, just the smallest inclination of his head. Goodbye. And then he turned and walked away. I watched him disappear down the street, his figure fading into the darkness of the Paris night. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel regret. I just felt calm. It was over. For good. Later that night, Grayson and I walked through the streets of Paris. It was late, nearly midnight, but the city was still alive. The air was cool and the sound of distant music drifted through the narrow streets. Grayson's hand brushed against mine as we walked. "You're quiet tonight," he said. "I saw Ryan," I said softly. Grayson's hand tightened slightly. "Did he say anything?" "No," I said. "He didn't need to." Grayson's gaze sharpened. "And how do you feel?" I smiled faintly. "Light." Grayson's lips curled. "Good." I stopped walking and turned toward him. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said. "What?" "For so long I thought I needed revenge," I said. "I thought I needed Ryan to feel the way he made me feel." Grayson's gaze darkened. "And now?" "I don't need him to suffer," I said. "Because I know he already is." Grayson's mouth twitched. "That's cold." "Maybe," I said. "But it's honest." Grayson brushed his thumb across my jaw. "And now?" I smiled. "How I move forward." Ryan would carry that weight for the rest of his life. He would always wonder what might have happened if he had treated me better. If he had never posted that picture. If he had valued me the way Grayson did now. But he would never have answers. Because I had left him behind. And now he had to live with that. A week later, I was boarding a flight to Milan for another campaign. Grayson was beside me, flipping through a magazine. Across from us, two business executives were having a conversation about market trends. I glanced down at my phone. There were no missed calls from Ryan. No new messages. Good. I slipped the phone into my bag and leaned back against the seat. "You ready?" Grayson asked. "Yes," I said simply. And for the first time in a long time I meant it. Some people think closure comes from an apology, from hearing the words, "I'm sorry," and forgiving the person who hurt you. But real closure? It comes when you no longer need that apology. Ryan had smiled at me that night, not with hope or bitterness, but with acceptance. And I had smiled back. That was the closure. Not forgiveness. Not revenge. Just the quiet understanding that it was over. That it had always been over. Ryan would carry the whole of losing me for the rest of his life. But me. I was already free. Ryan had broken me once. But I had put myself back together. Stronger. Sharper. Untouchable. He would carry the weight of losing me forever. But I wouldn't carry him anymore. Because I wasn't the girl Ryan once humiliated. I was the woman who walked away. The